welcome back to Words and Pictures for another Watercolour Wednesday. A few weeks back I did a Take 3 Colours episode, taking 3 colours of watercolour and just mixing and doodling and seeing what they could get up to. It's a great way to explore your paint colours and find out what other tones and shades and colours they can give you. I said that you might like to make some suggestions of 3 colours you'd like me to have a play with, and thank you to all those who did make a suggestion. You can continue to do that in the comments below here today. They ranged from as simple as pinks to some yellows for summer flowers to some very specific suggestions, and I said I would try to get as close as I can. So here's the first of them. And yeah, it was a request for deep ultramarine, burnt sienna and magenta. So as close as I can get is, I don't have a deep ultramarine, I've got ultramarine blue, burnt sienna light, and yeah, the magenta, I thought I had Quinacridone Lilac in a tube, but I don't seem to have. I've just got it in a pan. So I'm going to mix a bit of that into some Quinacridone Pink, and that hopefully will get us as close to a sort of magenta-ish colour as we can go. So I hope the suggester of that is okay with that arrangement. I've got some Fuumuui brushes on the mat. These I bought because I was really excited with the needlepoint brushes. We've had a look at those recently as well. I'll link to that video below, as well as the Take 3 colours. And these, as you can see, have mostly still got their hats on. I haven't had a chance to play with them or explore them really at all. So I bought these myself. This is not a promotional video at all. This was because, as I say, I enjoyed the needlepoint brushes and I thought I'd see what else the Fuumuui brushes have to offer. Having said that, my discount is still in place. So if you go to fuumuui.com and use the discount code Alison, you will get 20% off your whole purchase there. They have paints, they have papers, they have travel kits, as well as brushes. I'm thinking I'll just start with something simple, so maybe just a round. What have we got here? That's a round. So let's just use this. When you get new brushes, they're very often sort of stiff and the bristles are glued together. Generally, you can just kind of loosen them just with your fingertips. If you need to, a little bit of warm soapy water will do the thing. I've got my usual piece of the cheapish Clairefontaine watercolour paper, but I've also got a piece of Khadi paper just to have a play with later on, a bit more texture on that. So let's just start with the 3 colours we've got. And one of them, as I say, let's have a piece of kitchen roll nearby because that brush is now quite wet already. So as always, I've got my 2 jars of water, one that I will try to keep clean so that I've got clean water to mix paint up with, one of which I will use as my washing jar. Round. Let's have the Burnt Sienna Light because it's the one, I mean, I'm quite familiar with Burnt Sienna Light. I use it a lot in the autumn. As you can see, it's a gorgeous kind of autumnal glowing orangey brown, delicious rusty colour. So that's the Burnt Sienna Light, beg its pardon. And let's put a bit of depth in at one end, so direct from the tube paint. You can of course do this from pans. You can mix 3 colours with your watercolour pen. So that's now my messy pot. This is going to be my get some colour pot. Here's the ultramarine blue, just a beautiful kind of mixing blue. It's gorgeous. Let's rinse off and spread it out. I didn't do much spreading out with the, should still be able to get it to move. Yeah, I'll get a bit of a bloom there because I've put some water back into that paint. I can sort of smooth it out a little bit. There we go. And colour number 3 is the Quin Rose. Oh, I said I was going to put some Quin Lilac in it as well, didn't I? And I've now messed up both my water jars. It happens so fast. So let's pop a little bit of Quin Lilac in here, which is a little bit more of a magenta tone. And I'll try to remember to keep that topped up with Quin Lilac as well as the rose. This is now the cleaner one, so I'm switching back to, that's my messy water. Wow, look at that. moving across the paper. So let's have a look at a little bit of mixing. I might do this with a slightly smaller brush. The brush is gorgeous. The brush is holding lots of water. I can already tell that's really lovely to work with. So I'm going to create a little mixing grid. One Sienna Light, Burnt Sienna Light going across the top, and Burnt Sienna Light coming down the side. Just a little guide at the moment of where I'm headed. Let's have Ultramarine Blue going across the top, Ultramarine Blue going down the side, and Rose plus a bit of Lilac down the side and across the top. So now in my little mixing porcelain palette, this is a porcelain palette and I really love it. The paint mixes beautifully in it. It's white so you can see exactly what you're mixing up. So we'll have a little bit of that Burnt Sienna Light. We'll have a little bit of, I'm going to pick up some more Quin Lilac as I come over. Mix that into there and then bring that across. So that's, I would say the Quins are slightly more pigmented. So this is going to be La La La, You and You is what I've got now in the mix. Yeah, so the Quin is winning out there. So that'll do for that one. That's giving me a really bold scarlet. It's gorgeous. But then I'm going to bring in a bit more of the Burnt Sienna Light to the next mix so that I can create a different shade for this mix box here. Yeah, so that's a more peachy red, I guess. It's nice. It's sort of saying peaches to me at the moment. What I will do here is Sienna Light plus Sienna Light, i.e. a really concentrated version of Sienna Light. Burnt Sienna Light. Okay. BSL, should we call it BSL? That's British Sign Language. So that's a different thing already. So I'll have to just keep trying to remember to say Burnt Sienna Light. Grand, that's good. So in this one, wrong one again. While I'm on the intense versions, let's get some pure rose down in this corner. So that's rose plus rose. And that's really, that is a pink, not a magenta. So I will just run a little bit of the Quin Lilac into there because we know that that's what we're after. And it's just taking it slightly in a more purpley direction, magenta direction. Let's have a nice intense ultramarine blue in the middle. Whoa, look at that. And while that's on the brush, I'm going to take that into here so that I can start to mix up. This should get me something greyish, I'm thinking, because the Burnt Sienna Light is basically an orangey colour. Orange and blue are opposite each other on the colour wheel, so this should tend to the neutral, browns and greys. So with a heavier version of Burnt Sienna Light, that's getting me quite a nice brown. So it's blue and brown. Yeah, it's a good brown. This is saying sort of, as a palette already, need a bit more water in there to make it spread properly. And you can see where I've done the sort of thick application of that paint, that's quite textured. It's like sort of a heavy body acrylic almost when it goes on pure from the tube. Then with a bit more blue, I should be able to get myself something a bit grayer. Oh, that's a lot of blue because I was right in the dipping area. Let's balance that up again. Otherwise it's going to be all blue. Oh, look, that's an interesting colour, isn't it? Look. There we go. That's tending to the greys. Brown and blue. There we are. I mean, look at the difference between those two colours just because you've done that. Let me zoom in a bit so that you're seeing this. There we go. So having zoomed in, you can see a bit more of what's going on in that colour grid. And I've rotated my palette so that I can now show you the mixing grid, mixing bowl 4. And a little bit of the Quin Rose. So again, the Quin is powerful, so that's going to outweigh the blue. So in a 50-50 mix, the pink is basically going to win that. I'm not going for full-on 50-50s. I'm just trying to create colours that I enjoy. Ooh, look at that purple. So yeah, as I was saying, the palette as a whole is giving me berry vibes, really. That's a full-on purple, isn't it? That's really beautiful. And as you can see, again, the paint I'm mixing is quite thick at the moment, but that's going to enable me to thin it out as I go. Let's put a little bit more pink in it this time. And let's see what that gets us. Nice. So it's just giving me a chance to see what I can get from those mixes. And yes, straight away I sort of want to come in again with the larger brush, pick up a few of these purples that I've now got on the blue, and I'm just going to sort of dab in a few. It's somewhere between hydrangea shapes and berry shapes, and I'm just looking and letting those colours, oh sorry, this is the trouble with zooming in. Also, the sun is coming in and out today, so in a really unhelpful kind of way, the light and shade is coming and going. So I'm just going to create again a few petally sort of shapes. Those were sort of berry shapes, but they ended up not being very round because this is not a brush I'm familiar with. So as I'm doing this, I'm also having a little explore with the brush. This is a round, and it's quite a large size round, which is lovely because you get a softness and an ease to it. Going to bring in some of those neutrals with one of these finer brushes. There's a very teeny tiny also around, so you get that lovely fine tipped nib. And I'm going to come in with a couple of these blues and greys and just create some sort of stemmy things. Just having a look, create a bit of a more watery wash that will move on the paper. There we go. I am going to have to zoom out properly in a minute, aren't I? Because otherwise, there we go. If I have the paper on, you're just going to have to live with seeing what colour turns up on the paper. So a round is a really useful brush because you can, as you can see, even with that very fine one, I can create quite a lovely softness of a wash moving across the page. Let's let some of those colours just mix and match as we go. But I've also got the ability to create that very fine little flick. A useful little exploration. I'm loving this colour on here. That really vivid pink with the hints of purple. Oh, that was a big blop of water just fell on the page. Let's get some of these greys in action as well because they're really gorgeous. Mixing a grey neutral is always fun because you get something with real personality. That's the mix between the Quin Rose and the Burnt Sienna Light, and it's beautiful. So I'm going to mix up some more of it, just creating a bit more of that lovely peachy brown. So there it is in a much stronger formulation. I can also, with the tip of a round, so this is the large round, tip of round, I can go on a little dance over here. And let's create ourselves a nice watery wash of this ultramarine blue. Yeah, that's nice. There's a little bit of other stuff going on in the brush, but it's all good. And then I'm just going to pop a bit of colour into that. So while that's still wet, still on camera, letting that colour just spread and move. And in fact, that's what I might get up to on my page, I think, over here. Nice little swirls, and again, it's just I'm playing with the color palette, I'm playing with the brush head, just getting an idea of what's possible, both with the color mix that's been offered up here, and with a sense of the brushes. The brushes are gorgeous. You can see I can keep making marks with this for ages because that brush is holding so much paint. I haven't refilled yet. Still haven't refilled. I think I'm going to get another row out of it. It's getting paler, but yeah, that is pretty exceptional for a sort of. They're not massively expensive. I mean, they're not a budget brush, but not, you can certainly get far more expensive brushes than these. And yeah, I'm pretty impressed with what they're getting up to so far. There's another lovely brown I've mixed up. Let's have some dots. Yeah, oh, look at that. You get such a variation of brush strokes just with a round. So we've got different thicknesses of round, but still the work that you get. And let's try a spatter. You know I'm going to want to know about the spatter. Add a bit more blue into the mix. Lovely spatter. There we go. And let's go into that wet in wet, which is drying a little bit. And look at those textures that are being created down there. Gorgeous. Okay, I'm going to get the Khadi paper and just do a little bit of moving paint around on it, I think. Just for fun. Again, I'm not going for anything specific. I'm using the colours that are here in the palette. I will open out a little bit so that you get the full look at the palette as well. I'm not really sure exactly what will happen now. I sort of feel like that ultramarine with just a touch of the Burnt Sienna Light in has such a lovely sort of stormy sky look to it that I'm feeling a little bit skyey. So we'll maybe up in this corner just put in some of that. I'll maybe come up with some landscape from below with one of these browns. I very often work with landscapes when I'm exploring with colours, because what I'm still doing with these colours is just mixing to see what I get. Let's layer some blue over that to just grey it out a little bit, because at the moment it's too autumnal. Like so. And then I'm just going to allow that to join up in the middle. Working on the textured Khadi paper is different from working. That's just a beautiful ombre, isn't it? So if I come in with some of this Quin Pink and maybe create some flower petals, going to drop a bit of the red into there. Being bold, as you see, the colours were chosen for me, so I'm just going to let them do as they do. Maybe faded flowers. So that's already happening in the garden. So there are still plenty of flowers in full glory, but you're also starting to get those ones that are slightly going over. So you've got that sense of petals that are just starting to drop off. Fresh growth will come. We're not by any means done yet. There's a lovely shadowiness that is available by mixing the ultramarine and the Burnt Sienna Light. So it's creating a beautiful shadow colour. So let's just continue to let those blooms appear. Another slightly reddish one maybe. And then as these are drying, I'll be able to add a little bit more detail into them, just with maybe one of the finer brushes. But I'm just going to, yeah, let this move on the paper. Let this build a kind of presence. Of course, what I haven't got is a green. There's no yellow in these mixes. So I'm just going to have to live with having no green, which is the other thing that is making things autumnal for me. Without green, it's taking on that autumnal hue. That's a pretty effect with just dropping colour into other colours. I'm sort of tempted to leave this beautiful ombre just as it is, because I like it as it is, and it's giving me information about things I could do in the future with a mix like this of autumnal landscapes. And you can see I'm still just using the brush as it is. Look at the purples that are developing here as I allow that purple and pink to just mix and move on the paper. There's that. That's nice. Let's drop some colour into the centre. So these are a bit drier over here. So what I can choose to do now is drop a little bit more concentrated paint right into the centres of those. And just let that start to spread in any way it chooses to. Nice, I'm enjoying those flowers. They're impressionistic flowers, very much so. Maybe a little bit of grassiness would be nice. So I'll switch to the finer round brush and maybe get myself some flicking going on here. And I could create a few flower heads just on the tips of those in a sort of grassy way, meadow flower, autumnal look. So those could be really nice layered over that landscape. Something like that in the long run. It's almost getting lavender-like there. So I could, having had that thought, what I can now do is maybe mix up a bit of purpliness. There's browns getting in there, but I'm kind of fine with that, as you know. So let's accentuate a little thought of lavender. There goes the little train in the valley. I don't know whether you can hear that. I can certainly hear that. Those are pretty grasses. I like those. Might go for a few purple flicks. So yeah, as you can see, just continuing to play, continuing to let colours mix as they go. I'll lift that up so that you can see the sort of variety of colours developing there between the blues and the browns and the pinks. Just creating a lovely softness. Again, in here, things are starting to dry, so as they dry, you can add little extra bits and they'll travel in slightly different ways now that they're slightly drier. So you can add shadow, a little bit of shaping. And what I might well do is add a bit of white detailing to these in the long run. Let's go with a few more mark making things because they're just fun to explore. I'm sticking to the rounds today because that gives us a kind of clarity of what we're up to. I sort of do want to add a little bit, just wondering about, little bit of the blue brown, a little bit of the grey brown, and just, it's still damp here and moist on the Khadi paper. I've noticed that Khadi paper does hold moisture for a long time. It takes a while to dry, but that means that I can still come in with something quite soft here and let it just drift and move. And then I'm thinking just a thought, not a sort, a thought of, look at the difference between where it's gone on and it's still really wet and where it's gone on to somewhere slightly drier where you're already being able to create a bit more detail. Thinking maybe soft distant trees. That's probably too much paint. I want a bit more water in the mix. Soft tree-like shapes, just building in that landscape. Way down to the bottom of them. Much softer over this side still. So much wetter at this end. That's really interesting. I wasn't really aware that it was much wetter at that end until I started doing that. But it's giving you a lovely look at the difference between adding when things are wet and when things are dry. Let's create a little bit of landscaping. And if I want to soften that, I'll just go in with the bigger brush. Just add extra water. So we're just adding a little bit of texture into there. Let's let this drift downwards. If I'm bold and brave, I'll add in some purples. There we go, that's nice. That's giving me a sense of sort of depth. Lovely. I wonder if this is still wet enough for me to pick up some clouds. No, not quite. Not to worry. I can add cloud detail later. Let's see if this is. Yeah, it's just seriously. It's playing. I'm not in charge of what's going on here. I'm following the brush strokes, following ideas, letting things change and develop on the paper in front of me. Let's drop in some, maybe some flicks with the big one would be fun. Look at those colours as they mix and move on the paper. So that again, that pink went through some of the brown, through some of the blue, and we end up with something entirely different. And when you've got a mix of colours on the nib, look at those. If I formed those into a flower, you'd have that glorious colour variation going on throughout. I want to let this dry a little bit and maybe come back and add just a little bit of penwork detail, just because that's what I'm in the mood for today. I wouldn't usually add penwork detail when I'm working, just playing with exploring a colour palette, but I sort of feel like these flowers want a bit of, oh look, that's a different kind of flower head. I'm yearning for green now. Oh, look where it picked up the pink as it went through. Definitely yearning for green, but this is a really pretty colour palette. I will put the name or the link name up on the screen of, I've forgotten. I did mean to look it up before I started painting, but by then I was so excited by just trying out these colours. But thank you for suggesting these colours. It's been really nice to have a little explore with them. So yeah, it was Ultramarine Blue, Quinacridone Pink, but with a little bit of Quinacridone Lilac mixed in to get closer to the requested magenta, and Burnt Sienna Light, that have just taken me on a really pretty journey into almost, yeah, I can feel the end of summer coming. This needs to dry some more so that I can add more details. I could add maybe a town in the background, all of that kind of business. And yeah, I've enjoyed that a lot. Oh, there's interesting. So I must have been working with much more vivid colour mixes, so much stronger pigment on that paper, and then things got much more watery on the palette as we went on. So we moved from those vivid tones to something much gentler. But of course one could now, as things dry, go in with much more, much stronger mixes of paint to add. Oh, there we go, look. So that's, I've dipped straight into the Burnt Sienna Light for that. And then if I dip straight into the Quin Pink, I might pick up a little bit of Quin Lilac while we're at it and add that in there, because that does have that magenta glow to it. So much stronger pigmentation to just add a little bit of texture and detail into some of these. That's now not making me happy. I'm going to lift it up. That was too bold a blue. I like it with other mixes in. That Burnt Sienna Light as a pure, though, does make me happy. So maybe we'll pop a bit of that there. It just has a rustiness to it, which, as you'll know, appeals to me. There we go. And I'll let those do a bit of spreading out. Maybe I won't add pen detail. Maybe I'll just live with what's going on with those paints. So then if I just add water, that stronger pigment could choose to spread out if it wants to. Those are quite fun as they are. So I'm going to stop. Thank you so much for your company. As always, if you've enjoyed seeing those colour mixes, drop me a little thumbs up. I will, of course, list ingredients that I've been using below. The Fuumuui brushes, I'm really enjoying as a tool. So yes, remember there is that Alison discount, 1L, English Alison, UK Alison spelling. Discount code Alison will get you 20% off at Fuumuui if you are as excited about these brushes as I now am. If you have other colour suggestions, please pop them in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you if there are other colour mixes. I have got a list to be working through, and I will be working through that list. But for now, I'd just like to wish you all happy crafting.